My hatred was aesthetic. It was to do with beauty. I found almost everything in scientific psychology to be ugly, hard-edged, uncomfortable, unconvincing. Miller himself shared a moving example applied to himself the last time I heard him speak at the Belgrade conference in 2010, and reproduced in the recent volume PCP in an Accelerating World. He describes how he had to appear as an external interviewer in what would be a tense and competitive atmosphere in order to fill a senior post in the psychological therapies department and make a recommendation that would have profound implications for the future of the service. To help himself in this situation, he considered the various competing selves in his own repertory. I've taken the liberty of entering the text from Miller's story into what I call the qualitative grid. Unfortunately, it's hard to read, but it's all here in the text of this, which allows both the structure and the narrative sequence to be portrayed. Can't read it, can you? But in the first row, going along the top, he describes several voices in his mind: the anxious one, the rebellious teenager, the reformer, Mr. Fair-minded, and Mr. Let's Get It Done. First row. Anxious was insecure, uneasy, nervous. He was feeling inadequate to that, what was facing us, even a bit overawed. He was tight and closed. The rebel teenager was immediately there to be heard, loud and clear. He wanted to bash the establishment bastard, make him squirm and let him feel he's being successful, and then dump him was his vigorous advice. The reformer wanted to help towards enabling fairer and more open ways to live in and develop psychotherapy. His words of advice were, be faithful to your values. Mr. Fair-minded wanted to see and value the strengths of each candidate. He also wanted to attend to the needs of the world and the discipline of psychotherapy in a broader way than what's often done. Let's get this done with said, let it go, make the best choice you can and leave those involved to get on with it. You've done what you can, but they, the establishment, will always win in the end. So let it be. Second row. Next, he gives us a reaction, his reaction to each of these characters. I was shocked by the forceful presence, the outspoken honesty of the rebel teenager. I couldn't help but laugh at his no-nonsense approach. I was grateful to Mr. Fair-minded for the balance which he brought and the sense of being so trustworthy. The reformer reminded me in this public and politically charged situation of the importance of being true to your values and aspirations if you possibly can. And Mr. Let's Get This Done With voiced a familiar, already defeated position of the underdog, but I valued the fact that he stated that so clearly. Anxious had so obviously been present, feeling that he was being left with the whole responsibility in his lap, as the others initially remained in the shadows, mostly out of reach. In the third row, he briefly recapitulates. I got a strong sense of the powerful energy of rebel teenager, the quiet passion of the reformer, the safe pair of hands of Mr. Fair-minded, and the worldly practicality of Mr. Let's Get This Done With. All these energies seemed useful and had their relevance. He decides to appoint Mr. Fair-minded as the chair of his team of sales. I immediately asked Mr. Fair-minded to be the chairperson of my team for this occasion. I asked him to draw on the vigorous anger of the teenage rebel, on the vision of the reformer. I wanted us all to recognise what it was, as Mr. Let's Get It Done With was saying, a job to be done. We would do it as well as we could and then let it go. Anxious, by now much relieved, was also a valuable member of the team, since he always so sensitively open to undercurrents and hidden threats in situations like this. He could also be helpful to Mr. Fair-minded. Nearly finished. Mr. Miller concludes by recounting how much this contributed to the panel making a knife-edge decision by him, not just taking a logical or intellectual contribution, but by combining head and heart. He said that it seemed to help the whole interview panel to make a wider, more balanced and unanimous choice. I think this is a very profound, do you get this music? I think this is very profound and also touching in giving us a window into Miller's own world. and experience and the richness of construing he generates. I've got the feeling as I reflect on this wonderful account that we are glimpsing an additional Kellian, or perhaps I should say Mairean, cycle of fresh configuration and coherence, empowering Miller to move into an unknown situation with calm and renewed authority, control and passion. Miller's body lay in state in the temple of Sami Ling, the first Tibetan community founded in the West, and where he and his wife Ingrid had first met 20 years previously. This was a great honour, especially when, as far as I know, Miller was never attached to any particular religious order himself. But the Tibetan Buddhist tradition of bringing to mind and establishing personifications of various qualities, such as compassion, wisdom, cutting through obscuration, and equanimity, would fit in well with Miller's psychology, not to mention his personal qualities as a man. Well, I ask you to remember the first movement of Mozart's Requiem. And I'll just play a few pictures, just another minute or so. I need to go back to the slide. Can you do this for me? It's too shaky. Slide, current slide.
What's that?
Slideshow and then current slide.
New show.
New show, thank you.
So we've got Mozart's Requiem with a beautiful clarinet starting, and I'll just play a few of these pictures which Ingrid sent me. That's a lovely one, isn't it? That's Miller at the age of 32, I think. Garden. Weekend before he died. That's his award. And that's a book, that's a 500-page book, which is going to be seen by us soon. It's Sami Ling. And some more papers by Miller. Thank you very much.
Our technological glitches have made us go over time, but I would like to conclude by reading something from Ingrid. I so much appreciate the honor being done to Miller by this conference. I wish I had the foresight to join you all, but grief made me miss the opportunity. Please thank all those involved in this memorial for their efforts to make Miller remembered. So thank you, panel. He was touched beyond words when he received the Lifetime Achievement Award in Niagara, and it felt to me as if he had the recognition he so richly deserved. I am so glad this happened before he died. He was also delighted in the way that so many young and bright psychologists in America and Europe, and especially Italy and Serbia, had taken up a deep interest in PCP and were developing new and interesting ideas. He was so happy that the younger generation were taking these ideas forward. I send you all deep and heartfelt thanks for this tribute to Miller. Ingrid Mair.
So we can take about a 5 or 10 minute break, and then we'll come back for our final panel of the day.